Okay, let's see if you can hear me. Doing a little test here. We're loading up. Going live for our first guest on the DIY Disclosure podcast. Hopefully, he's going to pop in soon. If not, we will just talk one only, just me, one person. But I think he's getting loaded up, so that's cool. Let's see. I'm going to check the audio while we're, I'm going to do the official podcast a little bit edited. This is just the rough and tumble live stream version. So let's check our settings. See if we can hear ourselves okay. Looks like the levels here are reacting correctly. Happy Thursday evening. And Eric Hecker will be on here soon. He's like the most, some weird hair issues, but the most interesting plumber since Super Mario, but perhaps more interesting because he's a real life human person with real life consequences and stakes and courage required to blow the whistle on potential technological things that we should be aware of. And let's see here. I'm just going to open up the YouTube, see how it sounds. We're live again, baby. And let's see here. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. There's more of me everywhere. Just live again, baby. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So that seems pretty convincing. Let's check on Eric. He's in a different time zone, so hopefully he has the whole timing in sync. I'm talking to our friend Steve Bassett tomorrow. I'm almost done with a book he's one of the main characters in it. It's the Clinton UFO storybook by Grant Cameron. I was reading some of it live. I can actually go back to reading that up while we're waiting for Eric, maybe. Let's see. Eric, where are you? So let me grab that book. 1 second. You know what? Oh, there he is. Hey, Eric, can you hear me? Let's add Eric to the stage. Hi, can you hear me?
Good morning, Ross. I can hear you loud and clear.
Am I allowed to say where you're visiting currently? You're far
I'm in Australia.
He's in Australia. What brings you out there?
I actually did 2 speaking engagements here. I did one last night, and it went over extremely well.
Fantastic. Well, it seems like your audio is sounding good to me. So this is sort of our just soft opening. But now let me give a little coherence to what's going on here. Welcome. This is actually the first episode of my new podcast called DIY Disclosure. I'm really excited to have you. Obviously, we have other amazing guests lined up. Our friends, at least my friend Steve Bassett is tomorrow, and we got Paul Hynek coming up, all people who you might have vibed with when I had the pleasure of meeting you at Contact in the Desert, which was a real standout experience in my life. I love the idea of having you as the first guest because, it's called DIY Disclosure. And here we have the most interesting plumber I've ever heard of. I mean, I love Super Mario, but he's a cartoon avatar, actually, not to make anyone feel too sad about it, but you're a real life person with real life experiences. So it's been really cool getting to meet you and to research your website. And I've been on this whole fantastic rabbit hole on both Alaska, where at least you used to live, and the Dark Pyramid, and then getting very, very wrapped up in what's going on, of course, in Antarctica. So, yeah, how's everything going with you today?
Not bad at all. Having a blast. I'm kind of on a high from how well last night's event went. It was very short notice for which I was going to come visit Australia and put these events together. And I guess we had no idea how the turnout would be on such short notice and what the interest was for Australians in regards to the information that I'm putting out there. But I'm happy to say that we have 2 shows where I was the sole speaker, and both of them completely sold out. I have another engagement tonight, and I can only hope that it goes as well as last night's event. There was a lot of questions that I was able to engage with the audience after my presentation, and There was a fistful of people that were familiar with my information prior to starting the event, but it seemed that the majority of the attendants in the room were relatively new to the information. So I think I blew some people's minds last night.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely mind-blowing type things you've been through. I mean, even if you did not have these claims about the technology, which is literally mind-blowing and could, I guess, blow anyone's mind literally at any given point, not to freak anyone out. But just the fact that you spent what is it, 366 days in Antarctica? Like that
Yes,
alone is
sir.
something like I've never met anyone who's been there or, and
Yep.
someone who's worked there in an official capacity. So of course we're going to discuss that.
Hmm.
But oh, where to begin? Yes. Okay. Well, we gave a little taste of the many exciting things you have to offer. And again, this is DIY disclosure, and here we have like an everyman with in my view, not an everyman level of intelligence, but this has been my view that it takes not that you're a regular person, but it's going to take people people to find disclosure. It's not going to, in my view, be handed to us. So I am grateful for people like you who are willing to share things and to go outside the box and outside the sort of sanctioned parameters of what we are supposed to be saying at any given moment. So we'll start at the beginning. We're going to do a little storytelling. I've been been looking into you and talking with you in person. When I first met you. So yes, I understand you had a childhood that would seem unique to most people. However, since I've been, getting deeper and deeper into the world of disclosure, ufology, nature of reality, and the sort of perhaps not, forgotten sciences and perhaps suppressed sciences, I found a lot of patterns. I found a lot of people with a background like you who are now like my close friends who I learned from. So anyway, without me rambling too extensively about it, please tell me a bit about where you grew up and how you got involved in the world of psychic things, I guess.
I grew up on Long Island. It's a large arm of the military industrial complex that I think most people aren't paying that much attention to, but it has a history of being at the forefront of all of these technologies. And with that being said, I guess quite simply, I was um, tapped by a program that unfortunately works with children in regards to remote viewing and the studies of consciousness and the um I mean, when you say like, what got me into these things, I mean that was it. I don't know um why they selected me for it. But in regards to the big picture, I would like to express that I actually don't feel that special in this regard. I think what you're probably learning in your research and what I'm finding out is unfortunately that um there's many factions that are doing this to children, both back then and still to date. And it's part of the reason why I do what I'm doing is to out these programs to protect the children and hopefully make a better world for our posterity because this is what's going on. I'm only special in as so far as figuring out some things from my past, connecting some dots. But in reality, I'm the same as everybody out there. We need to start realizing that these programs exist and they're pretty much processing all of the children unbeknownst to the parents. So parents, be forewarned, pay more attention to who you're discharging your children to on a day-to-day basis, because there are programs that are very well hidden in plain sight and doing things you can't possibly imagine to the children.
Yeah, I recall in one of your interviews, you mentioned a story. I don't know if it was a personal experience or someone you knew, who it was like a Jesuit program. So something that might seem very, wholesome and useful could also be co-opted in some circumstances for this secret purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a Jesuit facility on Long Island in New York. It has since been knocked down, but previously it was the residence of the Brady family, and at the time was the fourth largest residence built in the United States of America. And yeah, it seemed to have ulterior motives that were very much aligned with the Jesuits and MK Ultra type stuff being applied to children.
So, if you were to try to like steel man the argument of like why they are doing this to young people, what do you think their motivations are for doing such a drastic thing to the population of their own country?
Utilizing their resources. I think what they learned is that, they were first working with adults in these remote viewing programs, and then they very rapidly learned that some of the issues in regards to getting good results had to deal with overcoming the biases that the adults had from their own life experiences. So then they moved in the direction of children because they didn't harbor such biases and were able to function better in these types of programs, I guess you would say, of consciousness study and remote viewing protocols.
Hmm. And I believe you mentioned something about you having a certain aptitude that made you of use in this program that perhaps not everyone would have had.
Yeah, I guess, I did very well academically with great ease in the school years. And then I also believe that there was some sort of inherent high level of intuitiveness that I had that was very beneficial to programs like that.
In my research, and this could just be a coincidence, but I found that there's certain patterns, what I refer to in my philosophy is like the coherence narrative of a person's life, where it's you could maybe look at it and predict like, oh, this child or young person went through X, Y, and Z things. Usually, in my limited research, some kind of trauma type event being part of it, and then some break a certain way, some break a different way, and that will potentially dictate the experience that they might have with the quote unquote phenomena. Um, was there anything in your life where you went through or were forced to go through some sort of like hard experience that somehow changed the quality of how you perceive the phenomena and or your ability to connect to things, some describe beyond the ether or whatever psychic things are in your assessment?
That's an interesting question. I do believe that there is a lot to be said for the application of trauma and the results that these programs are looking for. There's contemporarily a term referred to as DID, dissociative identity disorder, formerly MPD, which is multiple personalities disorder. But I think in my circumstance, I prefer the term IDID, which is induced dissociative identity disorder, which is simply showing the intention of one party to manufacture a dissociative set of circumstances versus just something that occurs naturally. And what goes along with this is I think we need to pay attention to this dissociativeness because I look at it as it's just it's natural. Mother Nature loves us and wants to help us. So I believe that children, when exposed to massive amounts of trauma, are assisted by Mother Nature by this natural benefit of dissociation because when a child doesn't have the faculties to deal with these horrible traumas that can be applied, Mother Nature comes in and provides this situation known as dissociation for the benefit of the child, and then they can now have coping strategies for their youth. And then, as an adult, when the experiences accumulate enough so that the adult can now, in retrospect, reconsider things that had occurred to them in the past, hopefully they have the wherewithal and faculties and appropriate experience to now do something to more properly integrate. So I do believe that this knowledge of dissociation is something that's been known by certain factions for quite some time and was abused and applied to the children for the express purposes of creating dissociatives for experimentation. Just simply what can we do with this? And we see that, all over the place in science is, you know, lots of times just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do something. But scientists are at the forefront of, uh, fuck it and let's find out.
Yes, I think you know a lot about that. Okay, so in Your experience. So is it your understanding that you were a part of Stargate or something like it, or MK Ultra, or do you know the specific name of what it was you got involved with as a kid?
I don't know any specificity to the programs. I mean, God only knows what they were calling it at different locations, but absolutely, it appears that I was involved with both some sort of Stargate remote viewing program applications and some sort of MK Ultra trauma induced environment to, hopefully promote a greater skill set through dissociation.
And do you have any lingering evidence? I know it must be difficult when you're a child to like have the wherewithal to like, get data and stuff, but do you have any have you gone? I have some friends who have been through similar things and sometimes even worse. And yeah, anyway, some of them are very motivated to get to the bottom of it and have done some great sleuthing, but you're obviously a very capable analyst of things. Do you have any clues or evidence as to the specifics involved with who was doing this to you as a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. Recently, there's a gentleman by the name of David Morehouse. Everybody is well aware of his involvement with the Stargate program. He was on a podcast with a gentleman named Danny Jones, and it was in one of his conversations with Danny Jones where he basically is the first person that I've ever seen from these programs that has divulged that they were working with children. He explained a circumstance where he stated that he was present with the director of Central Intelligence when they became cognizant of the fact that foreign nations were working these programs on children, outside of the U.S. And he stated very clearly that the response was immediate, that we, the United States, needed to invest in these programs also. So this is, straight from the horse's mouth from folks in these programs. I should say, this person in the programs that has, basically become the first crack in the dam to confess that we were working on children.
Okay, for those in the chat, we have some requests for technical information. We'll get there once we get the basic background story. So keep sharing your questions for our friend Eric here. We will be sure to get to all the technical questions. Don't you worry. Okay, so if you're comfortable sharing it in your experience learning these things against your will, I guess. Was it your experience that you were set up to have like intentional trauma as part of your training?
Can you clarify the question?
Okay, I'll try it again. Do you think, do you recall if they intentionally traumatize you in order to make you more psychic?
Yeah, absolutely. That's precisely what they do.
Okay.
I have many recollections of them traumatizing me, and I absolutely believe it was for the express purposes of causing dissociation.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to
Mhm.
clarify. Yeah.
Yep.
I said it more concisely the second time.
Yeah, you got it. Yep. Yeah,
I made it. I made it a little
I just wanted to make sure I was getting in the right direction for you.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Okay. So, moving on. So, how long were you involved in this program as a kid, do you think?
Got my entire childhood, from, you know, birth on. I don't think that I'm not impacted by them now. I stole a song lyric from a former New York band that I think very much describes how these programs work for some, which I believe is myself, and the term is from the womb to the tomb.
And is it your understanding that you have a lineage that makes you more able, for better or worse, to perceive these things?
I do. I think a lot of these programs, like I stated earlier, I think all children are going through some sort of processing so that these factions can use their resources to the best of their ability. It's like we're a product for some high level factions. And I think in that process, it was just deemed that I had the characteristics for the line that they then wanted to push me through. I think a lot of these uh, processing of the children is more or less to just find out, like what they're going to be most useful for in the future so that their agenda can be applied to the kids and be more efficiently used in the future.
And do you think it's a genetic thing, and or is it also like a hitchhiker effect kind of thing that gives people this ability?
I don't know what you mean by hitchhiker effect.
In ufology, it's the idea that a entity um, will sort of attach itself to one being, and then it will somehow, whether through DNA or whatever, be in the family indefinitely. So, have you heard of this?
I haven't heard of that, and I wouldn't have anything from my experience to align with that. But in the general overview of the question as presented, I guess I would say that I do believe there's some sort of a genealogical value as well as like bloodline experience.
Right, right. So, like residual trauma or something like that. Like, how do you think it works from generation to generation?
Scientific studies have shown that basically we are the end result of the six generations before us. In so far as that, that means six generations back, if one of your ancestors was exposed to certain things, it becomes, part of your instinct set or intuitive ability. So these things, through the attention of others, can be qualified. We're not necessarily privy to it because we're living day by day, but there are other folks and factions that through history have been paying attention to these things, are a little bit ahead of the curve. Again, back to what the resources are that they possess, and we appear to be very much a resource for something.
So, if you're comfortable sharing, what would be the most traumatizing or otherwise impactful memory you have from your time as a kid in this program?
uh, in a general overview, without having to get too descriptive and make the audience nauseating, I would say massive amounts of physical and sexual abuse.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
Which is, yeah, I mean, this is it's par for the course with what these programs do. It's the fastest way to traumatize a child and get the result that they're looking for, and they're very content in doing it. And this is why I'm warning the parents out there again. Be very cautious to who you're discharging your children to during the day, because they will smile in your face and then abuse your kid.
Wow. And now hopefully less traumatizing part of the conversation for you. So, and what kind of psi abilities did you first notice that you have and other people notice that you have, and how did it develop over time?
As far as me noticing, I didn't notice until much later on in life. In my childhood, they were being extremely dishonest. So I guess I'll start on the back end and go in the reverse. I noticed that I seem to have what through my chronological observations were is that I seem to have the ability to know. That's what I came up with. I just call it knowing. Um, there are times when you have no reason to know something, but you still know it, and people can't take that away from you. So what I learned is that there is a term for this called claircognizance, which it took me a while to come upon that. So what I suspect is that in my childhood, the overseers, the handlers, whatever you want to call it, the processors, the people that were, checking the skill sets of the children, probably learned way before I understood, was that I had this skill set of claircognizance. I could know things and be accurate, which is kind of, what remote viewing is accomplishing, is to be able to glean information from the environment to be correct and really have no justification for how you got that answer.
Do you still practice these things? Do you do remote viewing currently?
I still no, I still have a skill set, and do I practice remote viewing? Absolutely not. Um, in many ways, I would say I don't need to. I just am learning that I'm highly intuitive. I have this skill set of knowing, and I think other people have it as well. I guess you could. I wouldn't say that I practice something, but I would say it's a skill set that I can exercise. One of the ways that I tell folks that they also can exercise it, because like many psi abilities, many people have these. So it's something that anybody can exercise by simply paying attention to the times where you observe that you also are in a circumstance of knowing,
By the
and
way,
write that
before you
down.
started answering that, my some people in the comments. One of them is one of my metaphysical gurus, as I jokingly call him, but he knows things. So before you responded, he said, "I can literally feel part of this person sensing me. He's powerful. This guy, God Sauce, he knows what he's talking about." But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny because it lines up, and I
Mhm,
think I think you strike me as an authentic person. That's just my personal
mhm,
take.
mhm,
But thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I was just in my friend's space who does these remote viewing things, and so hopefully it was a competition this time. So hopefully I won. I just flowed with it. So we'll see. There's a
mhm.
lot of very capable, perceptive people in the community. So we'll just fingers crossed on that one. Okay, from your youth, and I'm sorry that you had to suffer. Um, and that you've now become the most interesting plumber in the world, the smartest plumber I've ever known of. So you scored well. You were identified by the government, I guess, for being a capable young lad. So can you just sort of give me a summary of how you became the grown-up version of you?
Hmm. Well, I guess if we just go in chronological order, I wound up doing a short stint in the United States Navy submarine service, which was an extremely peculiar circumstance for me, and probably the most challenging portion of my life to discuss, because it is the only time in the entirety of my story that I actually did have to sign some paperwork and say that there are certain things that I can't discuss. But it's not wholly limiting. It just requires me to, be very cautious in how I word things. Uh, excuse me. But in that odd time period was when I first came across a company called Raytheon, and they're very active in the submarine service. They're very active in the military industrial complex, and I happened to get involved with what I would just say was a very peculiar activity going on in one of the basements of one of their more top secret facilities at the submarine base in Groton, Connecticut. And I believe that that had something to do with later on in my life getting employed by Raytheon Polar Services for my stint at the South Pole Station. That a lot of the things in my life are basically, individual links in the chain, so to say. And when you look at each of the links, they may not look like much, but the fact that they then all connect to this chain of events is effectively the big picture. Um, as I'm sure you're well aware, not a lot of people get to spend a year at the South Pole Station to begin with. So I don't think that it was all on me without the intentions of others being applied to get me there.
And why do you think they wanted you there at the South Pole in Antarctica? I mean, apart from the
I
fact that
think
you're capable and skilled and stuff.
fair enough, very fair question, and a great one at that. I believe since my youth, the programs that I was involved with, it's starting to look to me like how do I put this? There are obviously many bad factions on the planet that have people doing bad things. There are many good factions on the planet. The bad people like to infiltrate the good people. It appears that the good people like to infiltrate the bad people. I believe that of all of the bad programs that I was associated with, that there were good people that saw the good in me and took the opportunity to assist me in being in the places they thought would be advantageous for somebody with my skill sets to make observations, to be able to connect the dots, and proceed to function in a way that's uncompromisable to make sure that this information gets out to the people. I think there was a lot of intention applied in my youth that there are folks in this world that operate on different timetables that are not day to day, pay the mortgage, watch the football game type environments. So I think there was a guiding hand that wanted somebody like me to be present in a lot of environments to basically gather the intel required and do what needed to be done, which is break it out of the shadows.
Yeah, there does seem to be a light and dark polarity and a gradient of different people out there, and this country, whatever it really is a collection of all kinds of different agendas. So may the good people prevail, I guess.
That's
Okay,
the way
but
I'm trying to function.
yeah, you gotta remain optimistic. I mean, we're allowed to be on the internet to some degree, right? On X, it's a wild environment, but it's an unprecedented amount of speech that can be shared. So I'm grateful for being able to talk to people like you. So okay, let's provide the lovely people listening and watching with a bit more of the narrative. Those who don't already know your fantastic tale. So I guess just kind of paint the picture of you finding out that you were going to go to the South Pole, and I guess you could describe the application process however you want to begin it.
Sure, no problem. It was simply an online application. I was looking for employment. The Obama administration had totally slaughtered the U.S. economy at the time, and I was attempting to find work anywhere on the planet. And there was this posting for a plumbing position in Centennial, Colorado. So I applied for it, and I got a response back informing me that it wasn't actually going to be in Centennial, Colorado, but was going to be in Antarctica. So there were positions for McMurdo Station, South Pole Station, summer season, winter season, and I just started applying to everything. I needed work. So I wound up getting a response back, and they said, we see that you applied to McMurdo Station in South Pole. They said normally we don't send people to South Pole without them going to McMurdo first. So, but with your resume and skill set, we'd be happy to give you a shot at the South Pole Station. Would you be interested? I said, sure. It was begrudgingly, actually. I really had no desire to go there, but I said, sure. I'm open to it. Then they said to me, well, you applied for a summer season, you applied for a winter season. They said, we're actually looking for somebody that can stick around for both and do a whole year. Would you be willing to do that? And then again, begrudgingly, I said, sure. I wasn't getting any other offers. Nobody else was going to cut me a check at the time. So I accepted the position.
So what did your intuition tell you upon arrival on this strange frozen world?
My intuition kicked in on this one well before it when I found out that the hiring contractor was Raytheon Polar Services. So what I had learned from my experience in the submarine service was to watch out for Raytheon, and my intuition served me very well. Raytheon is basically the devil incarnate in corporate form, and it just is what it is. So I went there reluctantly and just kept my head down and was like a sponge, just paying attention to what was really going on in all of the different compartments at the South Pole Station that I found out were not communicating with each other.
And describe just what it was like adjusting to the temperature, the setting, how many people were around you, what it's like to be in a world like this, just on a regular level, day to day.
Wow, that's hard. It's hard to put into words because it is so outside of other people's experiences. Um, the the term that we threw around quite regularly was simply, it's a harsh fucking continent. It is the highest, driest, coldest, windiest place on the planet. So it's now it's making me think of that movie. What the hell was it? Bruce Willis went out to space to blow up the meteor and such.
Armageddon.
And Armageddon, there you go.
Yeah.
So in the movie Armageddon, they're all sitting in a room, and the scientists are explaining to the drilling team what the environment is like, and they're giving details. And the one character turns and he goes, "So basically, it's just the worst that we could possibly imagine." thanks, you know. And so I mean that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The South Pole Station, as far as Mother Nature is concerned, she wants everything to be dead there. There's nothing living at the South Pole Station without massive logistical support. And that's something that I learned very quickly. I had to spend a lot of time outside in the elements. I had to walk from building to building to do my daily inspections of facilities. And I would literally have communications, like a lunatic with Mother Nature. I would exit the building, and in the conditions being what they were, I respected that Mother Nature was trying to kill me, and I would inform her that, you're not getting me today. I'm going to win. And that, I mean, that's how harsh of an environment it is that, that's where your brain goes. You realize Mother Nature is trying to wipe you off the face of the earth. And kind of like Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump, throwing his hand up at the store. Is that all you got? Like that was me and Mother Nature at the South Pole.
When you first arrived there, like how many other people were working and what was going on?
When I first showed up, geez, maybe there was maybe anywhere between 100 and 200 people. And the type of work that was going on, I guess you would say, would be opening of the station for the new summer season, having been mostly shut down for the winter season where they have much less people. The peak of the summer season when I was there, we had maybe close to 280 people for the summer season, followed by a winter season with only 49 people present.
And you were there an entire year. Like what type of seasonal shifts do you experience there?
Seasonally, you have winter. It's winter. It's cold. And there's different degrees of cold. Um, um, Observationally, you have one celestial day. So in 365 days at the South Pole, um, observations of the sun goes up and down once over the course of 365 days.
Yeah.
Um, I like to pause at this point and express to everybody out there, um, although you may not be able to wrap your head around what I'm saying right now, um, what what I observed is sufficient enough information if you sit and think about it. I mean, in reality, I feel like people should be able to realize immediately with what I just said, but think about it. If you can't realize it immediately, there's no fucking way the earth is flat.
No
It's
offense
just
to
it's
some
just
of
that
the
simple.
weirdos out there. Yeah,
No,
no.
no, full offense. Full offense. I wholly intend to offend every person that's been bamboozled by the flat earth bullshit. Mark Twain said many years ago that it's easier to bamboozle people than to convince them they've been bamboozled.
Indeed. Yeah.
I lived at the South Pole Station for a year. I observed the sun cycles. I have spent way more time up in the Arctic, the high Arctic, again, observing the sun cycles. I don't need a fucking link sent to me. I don't need someone to say, well, did you know that so and so said? I've lived all over this planet. I've observed with my own eyes, direct first-hand experience, how the sun works. That is the only thing you need to do is have your own ability to discern what you're seeing with your own eyes. And if you're fucking dumb enough to be confused by some other person's bullshit that can overpower your ability for direct first-hand experience, I laugh at you.
Yeah. Well, it's
Flat Earth
DIY
bullshit.
disclosure. You went
Yeah, this
there,
is
you
this is
saw
disclosure.
it.
I did this myself. Yeah, very, very well put. I did this myself. I traveled the globe to find out for myself. There is not a single piece of information that I have ever seen from the flat earth community that is not out and out shit.
Cool. Preaching to the choir, no offense to those people, but let's get to the technology. Maybe, I mean, I want to hear more of the narrative of what you went through, but I just can't wait to get into the ice cube neutrino detector, and please, yeah, give us that whole discussion. Yeah.
You got it. The Ice
Let's go
Cube
there.
Neutrino
Let's go there.
Detector
Yeah.
is the world's largest telescope. It is presented as a scientific instrument for the observation of neutrino impacts within the ice at the South Pole Station. The concept being that when a neutrino, which is a near massless particle traveling near or beyond the speed of light, when this particle impacts the nucleus of one of the water molecules, both the nucleus and the neutrino disintegrate, create a flash of blue Cherenkov radiation light that is observed by the digital optical modules, and then additionally a new particle is ejected known as a muon. That is what they're presenting the project to be, but it has a nefarious aspect. There are 5,160 of these digital optical modules that are embedded in the ice, and what I've presented to the world and to the Senate Intelligence Committee in Washington, D.C., and to Arrow in their SCIF facilities, respectively, that these DOMs also can transmit at up to 2,047 volts. So basically, this is also the world's largest phased array transmitter, and as of recently, it has been slated to be increased by 10 times its current size. So this is a directed energy weapons system. It is one of 3 directed energy weapons platforms that I have expressed exist at the South Pole Station. This is real, actionable intelligence. This is verifiable. This is information that I have gone to the government, presented all of my documentation. They appreciated it. They thanked me for it. They told me that my information was going to be fast-tracked to Congress. They told me that my information was going into the National Archives, and this is because this is actionable intelligence. This is what we need in the community. We need to get beyond all of these people that are put on pedestals and spotlights and brought to these conventions with their speculative, unsubstantiated bullshit. The vast majority of what's going on in disclosure is not do-it-yourself disclosure. It's factional, it's COINTELPRO, it's motivated by the factions that are trying to control the information and the narrative. They have the money, they have the motive, they have the know-how, and they are not allowing the truth out. Folks out there listening to this conversation right now need to ask themselves, why is it for the many years now that I've been trying to get this information to the public that all of these supposed researchers, all of these producers of these events, why are they ignoring verifiable, actionable intelligence from being promoted at their events, but they instead put in front of you people that have stories that cannot be substantiated, that cannot be verified, that do not have actionable intelligence? And I would suggest that the only reason is they're part of the problem. They're what we call gatekeepers. They are disinformationists. They are misinformationists. They belong to factions known as COINTELPRO. And basically, it's a war for information nowadays. And the vast majority of people are simply out there for the express purpose of muddying the waters so that the general population is confused because they don't have the real life experience to have any discernment to know who's telling the truth or not. I do not suffer that level of ignorance. I have real life first experience. I know who the bullshit artists are, and I call them out on it regularly, which is why they don't want me in these conversations.
Understandable. So trying to understand this in like a global context, right? I personally am of like mind with you, obviously, where I think we need to know the truth about existential things, the nature of reality. But I also can understand at least why, there's a perceived need, to develop technology, to use for defensive purposes, right? Like if, for example, you were the plumber at the Manhattan Project, would you have blown the whistle for that too? I know it's a slightly different scenario, but I'm just trying to, get a sense of
Oh,
this better.
absolutely. And just for greater clarification in the peculiarities of the things that I have done on Long Island as a plumber. To answer your question, I was a plumber for the Manhattan Project. If anybody looks up Dr. Paul and the Paul Corporation, I did the plumbing at the Paul Corporation. I was the plumber for Dr. Paul at his private residence, and he was a very heavy hand in the Manhattan Project.
Okay. See, that was related, I guess. Very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very fortuitous and synchronicities. So yeah, I
Amazing.
mean
Yeah.
this this goes back to what I was saying earlier is that I do believe that there were folks that wanted me to be in all of these different places so that I could make these connections and bring it all to the forefront. My experiences working in these types of facilities, working for these types of people, has given me a cumulative amount of experience to have a different level of understanding and knowing than the average person. So I'm not coming into these conversations willy-nilly lacking real world direct firsthand experiences. The people that I have brushed elbows with, the people that I had conversations with, the people that have given me information have really cherry picked me to be in a position to have a greater understanding of what's going on around us than the average person. And I absolutely am screaming from the mountaintops, trying to get people to pay attention to the fact that they've been bamboozled. They're being conned every day. They're being manipulated and controlled by the same people that are claiming to be, bringing out the newest truth. And it's shit.
Do you know or think that other nations of the world have similar ice cube neutrino type technology, or just this country?
Absolutely, it's easily referenceable that these technologies exist in other parts of the planet, and I warn people to stop thinking of this issue as a nation state thing. Nation states are puppets to much bigger players. I'm not as much concerned about what technology nation states have versus the rogue aspects of those nation states that are operating without any oversight. So that was one of the big conversations that I had with the Senate Intelligence Committee, was that we were all coming to this understanding that these programs have been so secreted away, between compartmentalization, need to know basis. Um, they're now operating without any oversight. They're doing whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, these NGOs, and yeah, I mean that's the scariest aspect of it, that it just,
Right.
how do you stop it? So I guess that's part of the reason you think it is the ethical, moral thing to disclose these things, because it's not just one
Absolutely.
country versus another; it's the whole
Oh,
planet that really.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
geographical borders mean nothing to the megalomaniacs that are operating above and beyond that. I mean, look at our country, right? The United States of America. Look at how many places we've bombed in the last couple of decades, the women and children that we've killed. Do you really think that a geographical border would prevent them from killing women and children on one side of the line? Oh, we only kill women and children on the other side of the line because they're not in our country.
So
This
I'm
is the
wondering.
and every nation's going to function the same way. So there's a level of power that can get to very quickly, where we can see that these people do whatever the fuck they want for their interests.
It your understanding that they have targeted, with this technology, individual people, or can they do that?
Oh, they did that decades ago, and the problem is that they've moved on. Now they're targeting everyone in mass.
Okay. Yeah, it's just no pressure
Yeah.
there. Okay, so can you describe the process when you first started piecing this together, when you were, at the station, and the intuitions, the experiences, the cumulative data that led you to this conclusion?
I guess in that vein, the first thing that I would say triggered me knowing that there was shenanigans afoot would be when I discovered that the ELF system at the South Pole Station was in fact up and running when we had been told with great specificity that it was inoperable. And that was just simply through, doing regular maintenance at the facility, tracking down a circuit for a pump that I had to replace, and I discovered that the ELF system was in fact energized and up and running. And that's the second directed energy weapons platform that I discovered at the South Pole Station in regards to this conversation. So officially, it was the first one that I became aware of, but the second one for this conversation. And there's a third one that is uh, a laser that fires out of what's referred to as the Atmospheric Research Observatory. And I believe it is a new technology that is being referred to as chemical lasers. And they appear to have the ability for long range communications and potentially some other multifaceted directed energy weapons type stuff. So that's the newest one on my radar, the laser and the chemical weapons. So I'm a little bit underinformed as to what they can do, because that's some new stuff for me to consider as well. But I recommend everybody starts looking into that also.
And can you give the variety of things that you think this technology can do and that it is currently doing, or has done in the past?
Weather manipulation, earthquake creation, voice to skull technology, faster than light communications, um, air traffic control observation for high-tech vehicles that have exotic propulsion systems. Um, yeah, I mean, it's almost in reality, the sky is the limit. Like, we need to start considering that almost anything that we can imagine can be accomplished through a directed energy weapons system that is in and of itself multifaceted, or then can be combined with other systems around the world to have, an exponential list of things that they can do. Our brains have been pretty programmed to the concept of conventional weapons, in as so far as that, we think of a gun and, you pull the trigger and it fires, and there's a specific caliber of bullet that comes out, and you do one action and you get one result. Directed energy weapons systems are way more complex than that. The level of technology that the power brokers of the planet have been monopolizing is, I mean, for all practical purposes, almost beyond our imagination. We've been dumbed down so much. That at this stage of the game, I would say we should apply Occam's razor, which most people use incorrectly and think that it has something to do with keeping things simple, and that the most simple answer is most likely and that's one of the most ridiculous things that can ever be stated. Life has shown us that everything is extremely complex, and things typically are way more complex than we previously considered, not simplified down. So the application of Occam's razor means that we have to take all possibilities and set it square on the table. And then the razor application is taking a slice of all of that possibility, observing that singular slice. And if you can discount it entirely, well, then you have the ability to throw that away and say that's absolutely not going on. But everything else has to remain on the table. So what I suggest to people is, first, align your thought process with the possibility that everything is possible through the application of directed energy until we prove otherwise. If you can think of it, there's a machine that can be manufactured that can mess with energies to get the outcome for the person that intended it. That's appears to be what we currently know. So all possibility exists always when it comes to directed energy weapon systems until proven otherwise.
Right. Okay. If this technology, if let's say you were in a situation, as I wish you were, to manage how our global civilization handles this technology, what would you do with it? Are there positive applications that could, potentially be used, or would it be best if we just somehow made it not exist anymore?
Making it not exist is naive and similar to firearms. Of course, there's good people and there's bad people. The system known as a firearm is neither good nor evil. It's the intention of the person wielding it. So I believe the same idea with guns would be that if the guns are not allowed for everybody to have them, then only the people that are secreting them away from the general population have control of them. And then at that point, we're going to suffer their intentions. So I believe, like everything else, knowledge is power, and the secreting of this shows the intent of the people, which is not good. So I do not believe that only the people of bad intention should have firearms. I do not believe that only people with bad intention should have this high level of technology.
So, what are some of the potential like positive use cases? What could we do with this technology if the right people had it?
Faster than light communications would be one. Weather manipulation for the benefit of the population instead of the detriment. I mean, again, all possibility exists always. How many good ideas can people come up with? I couldn't answer that question. All I can do is have faith in the good people to figure out good things, while I suggest that those good people start to, learn more about the bad people that are doing bad things. I'm all about balance and harmony, and right now it seems to me that um, only the bad people have these toys.
That is unfortunate. So, okay, are you aware, or do you have any theories about using this technology to take down UAPs?
Yeah, I mean that's that technology's been around since World War II. There was a what they were referring to as line of sight microwave um, microwave communications devices, which it's already been divulged that these were being utilized way back when to take down UAPs, UFOs, by the way, because UAP is just a modern reiteration, so they don't have to discuss UFOs anymore and admit that they were lying about shit. So back to UFOs being shot down by microwave weapons during World War II. Yeah, this is the exact same stuff, just better.
Okay, going a little nonlinear. Have you had any experiences with the phenomena, with UAPs or orbs or anything of
Oh,
that nature?
absolutely. In a fistful of occasions, I've seen UFOs. Some at South Pole, some in Alaska, some in Montauk, Long Island. They're around. If people pay attention, look for them.
If this ice cube array is taking down UAPs, like, do you have a guess as to why these UAPs don't retaliate in some kind of way?
Who said they don't?
Well, they didn't blow it up while you were there, at least, right?
Certainly they didn't blow it up because it's still present, but my crew has been negatively impacted by things that are on the Havana Syndrome list.
Mm.
So whether we were working actively and firing a weapon in one direction against something on this planet or off this planet, so if we were negatively impacted by the proximity to these weapons, or if they were returning fire upon us from either systems like this on the planet or off the planet, we're still negatively impacted. So I could put up a reasonable debate that there is an active war going on, and my crew are the walking wounded of this modern level of warfare. So yeah, I think it's going in both directions right now. Did they blow it up? No, because that's you thinking conventionally about warfare, not the new kind of warfare.
In the mind, yes, and whatever
Yeah,
else they want to do to you, yes, they can
yeah,
burn you to
yeah.
powder. Yeah.
I would say somebody attacked us back, and we were negatively impacted by those weapons. And that's, Havana Syndrome list type stuff. These are the modern walking wounded. It used to be that where there was a front lines battle, that, the walking wounded would be coming back, limping because they lost a limb or had bullet holes in them. And those were the wounds of conventional war. We're beyond conventional war. The technologies exist. It's all referenceable, but nobody's discussing what the wounds look like. And I would suggest that if people paid attention to what is the Havana Syndrome list of symptoms, if they look around the general population about them in their immediate proximity and start to realize that that list applies to almost everybody they know now. So walking wounded is everywhere. The battlefield is everywhere. We, the people of this planet, are caught in the crossfire of a modern level of warfare that people have not been able to consider or wrap their brains around yet.
Very disturbing. So could you describe to our viewers, listeners, why this technology, this ice cube neutrino detector array, why put it in this geographic location at the South Pole Station?
Because A, the primary cover story dictates that for how it functions in the ice and neutrino detection, and B, if you're going to have a high-end weapon system like this, you would like it to be very hard for people to take out. No one's going to be invading the South Pole Station anytime soon in a conventional way to do anything about this device.
In one of your podcasts, you shared a very interesting theory. Apologies if I get this incorrect, but I think you were saying that you think there is a chance that this technology is being used for some kind of like off-world UAP fleet of our own. I mean, NGOs or this government or whoever controls such things. Is that something you still consider to be likely true?
Absolutely. This is like I just mentioned earlier in this conversation. It's faster than light communications. Gary McKinnon hacked NASA. He found that there was an off-world fleet out and about in the cosmos, and obviously, if we have vehicles out there, we're going to need to communicate with them. So the South Pole Station, the Ice Cube Neutrino Detector, is that facility that provides quantum entangled, faster than light communications, so that we can be in touch with our off-world fleet.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite sci-fi books, Ender's Game, where they have the concept of Ansible, this faster than light communication. I don't know if you remember that book, but does it relate to that scientifically at all or conceptually?
I'm not familiar with the book, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, if we have vehicles out there, we have to communicate with them. So we have to have a system somewhere. So if we focus on the technologies and Occam's razor, and we start to pay attention to what's possible and where, I'm providing the actionable intelligence that shows the location. Now, the question is, what are we, the people, going to do about that?
Well, we can do this podcast to start. I don't know. You're the expert here. What do we do after this?
Get off our asses and start taking an active role in the world around us. Stop doing what other people tell you to do and start figuring out what you as an individual, this is the collective you, the audience out there. Stop doing what people tell you to do. Start figuring out what you think should be done and move to that action immediately. If it turns out you made an error in judgment, you'll figure it out and you can then make a new decision. Stop sitting on your asses and thinking somebody else is going to fix the world for you.
Yeah, I could not agree more with that. So, okay, we're getting into Antarctica. Obviously, there's so many more questions I have about it. Also, once we finish this chapter, I want to have a certain amount of time to talk about Alaska too. But I don't want to confuse our icy, mysterious places. Okay, so how much of the Antarctic continent were you able to explore? And please describe a little more about where you went, what you saw, what you didn't get a chance to see. I know there's this one coast that's pretty far away from the base. What's it called? Where there's been some stories about things happening. Also, like to know about just the history. Was it Admiral Byrd and what he saw and dealt with? Just more about Antarctica. Whatever's on your mind, please.
I arrived in McMurdo Station en route to South Pole Station. I spent less than 12 hours on the coast at McMurdo Station, and then they flew me to 90 degrees south, which is the South Pole of this spherical planet. And the remainder of my time was then 365 days at the South Pole Station. And when that was over, I went back to McMurdo Station for 12 hours before departing continent. That is the extent of what I saw, in regards to Antarctica, was the South Pole. I was stationed at the South Pole. The continent does not provide for you to go anywhere you want. Mother Nature prevents that.
Makes sense. Okay. Is it okay to move on to Alaska a little bit? I don't want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we can jump around. We can jump around. I just want to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want everything. But okay. Okay. So you've lived in Alaska, or do you currently live there? I know you're out of town
Yeah,
right now.
Alaska is my residence. Yeah, I'm just traveling right now, but yeah, I live in Alaska.
Very cool. Yeah, please share whatever you can about the Dark Pyramid, something I've been very interested in lately. I heard you discuss it in a podcast, and you were doing some research, and I think you were involved in, is it like a History Channel thing or some kind of program that took place in Alaska as well? Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. In regards to the pyramid, I think you might be a little bit confused. The pyramid that I came across was actually in Antarctica, and it was
Oh,
through a photograph from another Antarctic participant that showed the. I refer to it as the largest panoramic photo I've ever seen in my life. This thing's massive, and it shows a mountain chain in Antarctica, and then it's a photograph, right? But then there's text applied over each of the peaks in the mountain range to indicate the name of the peak. So, as an example, if there was, Ross Mountain or Hecker Mountain, they were just indicated, right? So each of these peaks was indicated, and then in this photograph, there's a pyramid in the mountain chain, and the text above the peak of the pyramid just simply states pyramid, not Mount Pyramid or Pyramid Mountain, just says pyramid. So this is a photograph taken from Antarctica by a United States Antarctic Program participant. So this is, again, this is actionable intelligence that, it's not some AI generated thing contemporarily. This is a photograph, from the program, made it off ice, and these are things that we need to start considering. So that's what I
wow.
know about pyramids on this planet in peculiar places. That was in Antarctica, but back to your question, in Alaska, yes, I was involved with a television series called The Alaska Triangle. I was in season 2, episode 9. The producers sent me out to an area in Alaska called Ketchikan. The idea was for me to go out with the camera crew onto the waters out there because there were reports of unidentified submerged objects. The producers asked if this is something that I believe that I can assist them in locating, and I said yes. They sent me out there. We were on the boat with the crew. We had the gear to put down into the water to try to hunt down these unidentified submerged objects. They recorded the entire process. Everything was recorded. And there were areas where, of course, I'm hunting, right? So we put the gear in the water, I'm listening, and I wasn't finding anything at first. So we would, put the gear in, listen, and say, all right, not getting anything here, not getting anything there. We did that in a fistful of locations until I eventually did get to a point where we were getting solid hits. We were recording everything. The camera crew was overjoyed. The captain of the boat was overjoyed. I was overjoyed. We're all basically high fiving each other like, mission accomplished. We found them. Well, they edited all of that out. They removed the finding portion and exclusively left in the clips of me going, oh, yep, can't find anything here. Oh, yep, can't find anything here. So this is where I'm also trying to express to people I have direct firsthand experience that the vast majority of what's going on in disclosure is fucking bullshit. They're doing everything they can to hide the truth from the people, and they're doing everything they can to take people like me and try to prevent us from getting that truth to the masses.
Yeah, yeah, everything they can. It's everything they normally potentially do in terms of disinformation, right? I guess if they wanted to be really proactive, they would like take down the internet. They wouldn't let that show go forward at all. But it seems like the nature
They
of no
don't
offense.
they don't
Yeah.
need to take down the internet. They control the internet. It is, that people must be familiar with the term gatekeepers. Okay, the internet's the gate. And,
Yeah.
back when it first came out, it was called the information superhighway. And the pretense was that we would all have access to each other and be able to share our information in an uncensored capacity so quickly. Where the fuck is the uncensored capacity of the internet?
Yeah, it started that way to some degree. Interestingly enough.
Absolutely, because that's what we were sold on.
Yeah.
But they quickly reeled it in, and now you can't say jack shit in any direction without a censor or a fact checker showing up, which shows that there are gatekeepers that have a key to the gate. And like George Carlin said, it's a big fucking club, and you ain't in it.
Indeed. Why do you think there is this pageantry of planned disclosure at all, as opposed to just like in previous decades, just locking it down, more aggressively?
Because it's easier to do it this way to misinform and disinform the people than withhold the information.
Yeah, and I guess
It's easier to fill the entire internet with fake content creators that are acting like they're unaffiliated with any agency when it's heir apparent that every one of these agencies from our nation, other nations, have the funding and the motive to be the disclosure community. If people think that the CIA can't afford, so you and I met at the Contact in the Desert event. Do you think the CIA can't afford to put on an event like that? Do you think the CIA can't afford to be funding every single UFO convention in the entire country times 100? Do you think they don't have the motive to do that? Wouldn't that really empower them to control the narrative? I mean, we the people have to have a really serious conversation. Everybody's very happy to be like, oh, did you hear what so and so said? I think that's so cool. And I'm going to share a link because I think that person's telling the truth. Well,
yeah.
how come we as reasonable adults can't engage in the more challenging conversation of, hey, Ross, who do you think's totally full of shit? Shouldn't we put the liars on blast? Shouldn't we take the people that are muddying the waters and pretty much hang them from nooses figuratively? Wouldn't that cause more truth to get to the masses by removing the liars? But it seems like we have a whole industry that doesn't want to discuss that. Doesn't want anyone to discuss that. Doesn't want there to be any consideration that there might be a wolf in the henhouse, or that the henhouse might just be strictly full of wolves pretending to be hens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we
Because
have to get to the truth.
that's what my experience is. I'm learning as someone with verifiable, actionable intelligence is that pretty much every door I show up to, I'm finding a fucking bullshit artist.
It's the topic itself lends itself to, I hate to say it, but grifters. And it's cool to meet someone like you who, has not done things to sell products, or described yourself to be some sort of guru figure. So yeah, it's a topic that really has the propensity to be exploited. So there's that,
Absolutely.
and there's so little data points. There's a lot of data out there, though, as you know, but there's
There's a
very
lot of
little.
there's a lot of opinions and testimony that cannot be corroborated, substantiated, or supported by fact, and that seems to be the information that's being pumped to the masses every single day. How come? People need to ask themselves this. Why is everybody so enamored with shit that can't be proven and screaming? All the people want the truth. I hear them asking for it. Everybody says, if somebody knew something, they would say something. Well, I'm somebody that knows something, and I'm saying something. I would like everybody to, you have a chat room there. Ask everyone why is it that someone like me is not a figurehead at these events? Why am I not the center stage presenter? How's that even possible if these people are good intentioned?
Well, I guess maybe you don't want that, but I think
No,
you if
I
you want,
do, because
yeah.
as an obligation to humanity, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I would have preferred that this happened quicker. I wanted to just take my information, drop it on the internet, and have good people run with it and inform the rest of the people. What I learned is that's not happening. And what I'm in the fight for now is to figure out why and who I have to remove from the equation, because it's ridiculous that I just keep coming across more and more gatekeepers that are obvious to me not interested in getting the truth to the masses.
Yeah, yeah, no, that is a occupational hazard for trying to figure out what's going on around here. We all have dealt with it. But you know, I'm whatever I can do. I support people who have firsthand experience and things
Mhm.
to say, as opposed to people. I'm not going to name names, but you can.
Mhm.
Of course, you're your own person.
But then, and I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. This is exactly what I was getting at. If there are
Yeah,
people that you believe are telling the truth, you should put your stamp of approval on them. If there are people that you are thinking are a detriment to the truth community, why would you refrain? That is not helpful. You're now tolerating it.
yeah.
You
Well,
are
I don't know that.
enabling it.
I have some suspicions that maybe
Then you
privately
should voice
I
that.
can.
You can clearly state, I suspect that this person is disingenuous. And we should all be doing that, and then that way we can all work together to find out who is disingenuous. By not engaging this conversation is a detriment to the truth movement and humanity on a whole. This is a chapter that we need to turn the page on and start becoming bold enough to say, you know what, maybe I don't know. There's a lot of people that you support that you don't know that they're telling the truth, but you will clearly engage them under the possibility that they're telling the truth. Why not let the pendulum swing in the other direction and say, you know what? This person rubs me the wrong way. I can't prove that they're full of shit, but I certainly am not buying what they're selling. Those conversations need to be engaged,
Yeah.
we're never going to grow in this community. This is the problem with this disclosure community, is everybody's too fucking chicken shit to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just for me personally, and I can't speak for other people in terms of my personal ethics. I have a whole philosophy about it. It's called algorithmic jujitsu, but it had an aspect of it is called revolutionary civility, and that's the idea
Mhm.
of trying to get along with people. But I do have these
Well,
conversations
the term
privately.
jujitsu indicates that there's a fight going on,
Oh, it is. There's also the war on
right?
war. So
So,
yeah,
right.
it's
So that means that there's proactive activity, that you're not going to just sit there and take punches, but you're also going to throw some, because that's what fighting is
exactly.
about.
Yeah, but it's jujitsu, so it's meant to be the most. Anyway, it's just my style. Maybe I'll change to your
Mhm.
program. But it's a work in progress. But
Mhm.
in terms of me, I don't. I also have it's algorithmic jujitsu because it has to do with making the internet, like we were just talking about, much better, like it used to be, and up to its full potential, right? And so there's a lot of considerations. But I don't like in terms of the internet and how I would like to do social media, would be not to have like slander and things like that on the timeline, but instead be able to share things, but to require some degree of evidence, I guess. So I don't. For me personally, I'm not. You do you. You can talk about anyone you want here. You're
Mhm.
your own DIY person. You're the epitome of it. But for me anyway, a work in progress idea is to not say anything like that publicly until I have receipts, I guess.
Well,
But to do it,
how
yeah,
about, well, like you said, evidence based, right?
yeah,
Um, Stop discussing anybody who doesn't have solid evidence. Stop platforming people that don't have solid evidence. That in and of itself is still accomplishing the same thing that I'm suggesting.
exactly,
Is that if people don't have evidence, fuck them.
yeah. Well, this is why you're my first
But
guest because you
right,
were there, you
yeah,
saw it, yeah.
yeah, and
You
we
have
have a
archives, yeah.
whole industry that keeps platforming people that have no evidence. So I would support your type of jujitsu, but I would suggest you hurry up and stop discussing people with no evidence and continue to promote people with verifiable, actionable intelligence, because that would assist in demuddying the waters.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's my intention, and you can help me
Mhm.
with your knowledge and research. Yeah,
Mhm.
as you are already.
Yeah.
And yeah. So okay, back to Alaska. So you are familiar though with the Dark Pyramid that's also there. That's supposed to be.
Yes, over
Yeah,
underneath Mount Hayes. It was remote viewed by, I believe, Pat Price and Joe McGonigal, which have been shown to be highly effective remote viewers.
yeah. So okay, for remote viewing, what is the best evidence that you've seen in addition to your own personal experience, to show that remote viewing can be and has been used to accomplish things reliably for the government, for the military, for NGOs, whoever else wants to wield it.
The movie The Hunt for Red October is a true story. Tom Clancy is not a writer; he is some sort of an agent. In the beginning of that movie, the Baldwin character, who is some sort of uh, processor of information for an agency, discusses that they came across intelligence about a new Soviet submarine. Well, this is all based in reality. Joe McGonigal was the remote viewer that did this in reality. He discovered that Soviet submarine inland, and therein lies, I mean, the start of the movie. When I was in submarine school, we watched the movie, but we were in training and we were told to watch the movie with the understanding it's a true story. So that movie is the end result of a remote viewing activity that worked. So that's an example. It's, there's so much information that's easily referenceable to anybody in the audience to look up remote viewing programs and how effective they were.
How much do you think remote viewing is being used in like the private sector to, predict outcomes for gambling or whatever else?
In so many ways, remote viewing would just be a monopolized technique that they don't want the general population to know that they also too have this skill set. Yeah, I think many factions around the world have been using it for a very long time for a multitude of benefits to be gained.
I would imagine that would be a useful thing in any kind of project.
Hmm.
So, okay, the topic of disclosure again. I'd love to get more of your take, your theories on what the nature of reality is with the phenomena. Is it all the same coordinated thing? Is it primarily coming from our own consciousness? Explain the nature of reality to the best of your ability.
I guess in regards to this question, I need to know what you mean by the phenomena.
Well, it's like the plural version of phenomenon. So you can, paranormal, supernatural, extraterrestrial, crypto-terrestrial. There's so many different ways of describing that which goes beyond our normal experiences as people. The phenomenon. Yeah. So what's all this mysterious otherworldly stuff that people are talking about? Where does it come from?
Wow, that's an extremely challenging question because it's so broad. It's basically saying, explain all of the things that we don't know.
That we are
I
at
don't,
least,
I don't,
yeah, we can narrow it down a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, you got to make this more concise.
Well, let's start with what they used to call UFOs and now they call UAP.
Mhm.
What do you think that is, and who is behind it?
Oh, got you. The vast majority of that activity is just high technology from men on this planet, being used by many factions that are, like gangs having turf wars. They're vying for control and power and fighting with each other, and we're just caught in the crossfire. Does that mean that there's nothing off planet? Absolutely not. I'm just stating that the vast majority of activity that people on this planet see is from people on this planet.
Do you think there is a breakaway civilization on this planet of beings either human or different, like crypto-terrestrial reptilians? Do you think any of that stuff is going on?
Absolutely. This is what Gary McKinnon showed when he hacked into the NASA system and found that there's an off-world fleet. Right there, you have one arm of a breakaway civilization.
So is that different than our fleet that you think these neutrino detector arrays are coordinating? So do you think that we're coordinating our own fleet as well as non-human fleets are also being tracked in this manner?
Yes, I think, yeah, absolutely. This technology is for both of those items.
Makes sense. So what about the paranormal side? Have you experienced that yourself? Do you think it exists? And do you think it's related to the UFO UAP phenomenon?
Absolutely, because under the umbrella term paranormal, remote viewing is a paranormal activity for which I have direct firsthand experience in, and I think it is absolutely pertinent to what's going on and what people would consider UFO technology, that there appears to be something consciousness related, which would be paranormal.
Do you think, I mean, I've seen some scientific research that suggests that some to maybe all of these UAP type encounters come from the individual consciousness, and that in some, maybe all cases, it is as if it is 5D printed from beyond the ether, in terms of how at least some examples of encounters take place. And that would include potentially the nuts and bolts UAP crafts that have been seen and or gathered, as well as perhaps these gray alien beings that have been, I guess, dealt with and captured based on the stories.
No, I'm going to go back to what I said before. The vast majority of any sightings, engagements, interactions are just simply high-level technology from people on this planet, and the people that are victimized by the activities are underinformed, unable to understand what's being presented because there's such a discrepancy in what they know and what the technology is. And then there's also a lot of applied intention for those same folks to be misinformed and disinformed and have their minds led in a different direction. So no, I don't think it's as you put it in the slightest. I think it's just confusion from people being ignorant to what's available on the planet.
And but you think some percentage of it is non-human beings doing these things. Does it seem like, as you implied, that they are less that they interfere less with us, the non-human beings who have craft of this kind? And is it more, in your opinion, the humans that are doing the negative things to fellow humans?
Correct. Statistically, the amount of off-world activity that on-world people are dealing with is so minuscule, we might as well throw it out of the conversation and focus on the brass tacks reality that these encounters are, for the most part, occurring between people from this planet with other people on this planet.
And does it seem that the rollout of this disclosure, the official disclosure, it's intended to highlight a certain aspect of the extraterrestrial nature over the human nature, in order to sort of distract from what's going on with the technology?
Absolutely. That's all it is. The veil is starting to be removed on the fact that it's people from this planet negatively impacting other people from this planet. So only now that the veil is starting to lift are they, the people that have the technology, really trying to, for the first time ever, go, oh, did we ever mention there's UFOs? I mean, come on. If people can't see through this uh, obvious bullshit. I mean, again, back to it's easier to bamboozle people than to convince them they've been bamboozled.
Indeed. Yeah, it's cheaper too, I guess. Just use the
Hell yeah.
media. Yeah.
Hmm.
You don't have to show them anything, just
Yeah.
disclose some words, by
Yeah, I mean, look
people.
at look at the
And
level of CGI and stuff that's available right now to movie productions. If anybody's familiar with DaVinci Resolve an editing software program for movie manufacturing, there's almost nothing that you can't make look completely legitimate on the screen, right? We, the people, now have access to this level of technology. Okay. Um, you think that the governments haven't had access to that level of technology 4 and 5 decades ago?
yeah, I mean, there's been a major gap since the last bit of innovation, and it's so interesting
Mhm.
looking at like SpaceX and NASA, uh, doing things the old-fashioned way, with rockets
Mhm.
and such. In your view, there's secret launches that happen, with newer technology, and like how old do you think so tell me what your theory is about the real space program.
Anti-gravity was discovered back in the early 1900s and absconded by the very wealthy elite on this planet, and it's a monopolized technology. That's what's going on. The idea that we have folks like Elon Musk dealing with rocketry, I mean, come on. It's absurd to think that this is the level of technology that they're going to consider is going to bring us into the future. It's technology from the fucking past. How's it going to bring us into the future? It's utterly ridiculous.
What do you think about the moon landing and its what actually happened?
I think there's a high probability that we were trying to put our best foot forwards once again in the misinformation, disinformation game. I think there's a high probability that there was a Hollywood production to how do I put it? Guarantee the presentation of us being there first and winning the race. I believe that we still did go there, but we didn't necessarily go there when we said we did, because we were again trying to win an information battle, and there was a lot of propaganda involved. So, do I think we went to the moon at some point? Yeah, absolutely. We went to the moon at some point. Do I think it happened on the date that they said? Not necessarily. I think there's a lot of questions to be asked about that for sure. But we're regardless of whether or not we went to the moon on a specific date, we seem to have the technology to get off this planet with great ease and to go great distances.
So at the time of the alleged moon landing, how advanced do you think our anti-gravitic type propulsion? Do you think they used a rocket to get there, or if they got there, do you think they used something else initially?
I think the astronauts that we were presented as the original lunar team showed up to a moon with the antiquated technology that they used, and were very pissed off to find out that they weren't the best of the best of the best, because there was already other flight crews up there with the greater technology waiting for them. And I think this is observable if you just simply look at these astronauts before they went, and they're all gung-ho, and then look at their personalities when they returned. You want to talk about some folks that were humbled? And that's how it works in the military. The one crew thinks they're really badass until they meet a way more badass crew. And I think our lunar module team wound up coming back quite humbled, because they were privy to seeing the actual badasses.
Yeah, that seems to be the kind of dynamic psychologically, structurally, to make people feel incentivized, pump up their egos, make them feel like they're doing the most important thing, and then keep them keep them away from the things they need to really piece it all together. Yeah. So you think when they went to the moon, potentially they saw other humans that had the real technology, or okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a bit of a blow to the ego. Yeah, but it'd still be pretty cool. I mean, to take balls to do it on a freaking rocket. I mean, it's like, whoa, why'd you put my life at risk like that? I could have just got here instantaneously, on a little UAP.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know the tech existed until they got there and got humbled.
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to ruin the footage.
And the military is certainly full of people that have been hardly programmed to take on missions of expendability.
So, okay, this is conjectural stuff, but since, at least statistically, in your view, the non-human beings have been less of a problem than the human beings, which is, quite obvious to me anyway, being a human, dealing with only humans so far, and the nature of many of them. So what about things like the Galactic Federation? Do you have any clues as to whether something like that might exist for the more civilized non-human beings?
That type of stuff seems like massive propaganda put out by bullshit artists to me, to muddy the waters of actual disclosure. You got any evidence to support what you just put in my direction from the people that put it in yours?
Star Trek, the series. Just propaganda. Yeah.
What is that as far as evidence goes?
It's just propaganda. It's just, but yeah, it does muddy the waters.
I suggest you go back to the people that you heard that from, and you ask them for evidence, or tell them to shut the fuck up.
I have not gotten any evidence, and yeah.
There you go. So if there's no evidence, then there's no evidence.
Yeah. But in terms of the clues, piecing together, right? If the,
What's a clue? What are the clues that you're talking about?
well, the clue is disinformation and the motivations to potentially be giving it,
Ah,
right? Yeah.
that is more heir apparent than any substantiating evidence for a galactic federation's existence.
Yeah, I mean, so on one hand, right, just to kind of muddy the waters, right, you'd have the extraterrestrial idea to keeping you away from our technology. No offense to
Correct.
those who've developed it so brilliantly, and then also the idea of a galactic federation personifying, turning anthropomorphizing it to be like human
Hmm.
stuff, getting you away from consciousness, which would be the thing to help you maybe gain some control of the situation as this human population.
Yeah, and to condition people to keep their asses on the couch under the false pretense that the Galactic Federation is going to come fix everything for you. I mean,
Yes,
this is just standard operating procedures for the agencies that are, into population manipulation.
yeah, it's got to confuse and render you docile.
Hmm. Absolutely, and they're doing an excellent job of it because there's certainly not people out in the streets rioting for more freedoms and liberties. I mean, we just went through a whole processing program called COVID-19 that conditioned the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, so it isolated us. It kept us plugged into social media, which they can control. And yeah, what do you think is the intention behind keeping us physically separated, if anything?
Control. It worked great. Everybody did what they were told to do and shouldn't have done. Every single person should have known better. Every single person should have resisted. But what we observed was they didn't. We lost that battle. The modern battlefield is in the mind, and we as a group totally lost that battle.
Well, it's not completely over yet, but it probably is. But
That battle,
yeah,
that
that
battle,
battle, yeah,
that one, the war is still waging.
yeah,
That battle was solidly lost.
indeed, that one,
We
yes.
have to be honest about that.
Indeed. I am 100% on the same page. But I guess what I'm getting at and I'm wondering about is it forced us to be online more, right? If it was the early days of the internet
Mhm,
where it was not as censored and you could really find and share information in an unprecedented
mhm,
global way, it could have brought us closer. My whole philosophy is kind of about this, by the way, trying to
mhm,
improve, the hive
mhm,
mind for constructive purposes, like we're doing right now.
mhm.
So I'm a bit of an optimist. I just try. It's the only way I can survive is to try to find a way
Mhm.
forward. And I think during the pandemic, I that's when I found spaces, which you should join us at some point if you feel comfortable doing it, because it is a unique thing. It's away from the algorithmic timeline. When you're in the right kind of
I do as
yeah.
much as I can to get off the internet as possible, and I highly suggest everybody else starts partaking in the same activity. Just like you mentioned earlier, that what part of that operation did in that war, in that battle that we lost in the war, you're correct. It forced us all to get on the internet more. That's to our detriment.
I agree. Yeah.
So I mean, I absolutely I will not be getting on Spaces, and I will get on the internet as little as possible as a primary goal in my life. I thumb my nose at virtual reality all day long. Reality is better, and you learn more from that. And I suggest everybody else listening to this starts doing the same thing. The internet's your fucking enemy at this point. Your cell phone's a weapon to be used against you. Stop carrying it around with you everywhere you go. Start distancing yourselves. Remember way back when there was, the planking challenge and everybody was going to work on getting more physically fit because they're going to plank. And they could start at 30 seconds a day and then a minute per session and then 5 minutes. And next thing you know, you're planking indefinitely. Well, you know what? I challenge people to the cell phone challenge. Exit your house without your phone for 5 minutes. Distance yourself from it. Increase that number. Keep it away from you, outside of arm's reach. Increase your ability to distance yourself from the technology and watch how quick you become actually educated and happy.
Yeah, well, that's crucial to my philosophy as well. There's different chapters of the epistemology. The one we're kind of living in now is called the War on War II, where the War on War I was trying to find ways to participate online without compromising one's ethics or integrity, right? Which was an uphill battle, as you could imagine. But War on War II is a much happier time. I'm in it right now. It involved meeting you in real life. And so long story short, it has to do with spending much more time with real people in real places. So I could not agree more.
People need to stop going onto the internet to finding chat rooms, and they need to go to a room in reality and find people to chat with.
Yeah. But I
start.
also,
Here's a way that we can have a compromise, right? Let's look at the internet like a drug, right? And there's a difference between use and abuse. Okay. Here's a healthy way to use the internet. Start a meetup group on the internet so that you can then find people in your locale that you can actually meet face to face in a real room and have a real chat. Not the digital version.
Yeah.
One is better for a human being than the other without argument.
Yeah. I mean, the internet should be a tool to bring people in physical reality closer together in a more deep and meaningful way, not as a thing that keeps that from happening, which is what it is now. And it started with, it was accelerated during the pandemic, obviously. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
if you're not working harder to make a more human connection every day, you're losing the next battle.
Yeah. But here's the thing that I like about the potential of the internet when it wasn't so corrupted, right? Was that it can bring people together from around the world. It's nice to do the local thing, and you have to do that, and I am working on it, obviously. But I think, like with what you're saying, one of the many things I love about your mission and your information you're sharing is that it's meant for the whole planet, all planetary life, to because these nation state things are kind of an illusion, and the power transcends it. And if we are to potentially resolve this, connecting to all human people and recognizing the overlapping cross section of the things we have in common, and have that be as filled with actual provable truth as possible, like what you're sharing with us. So that's why it's a balance. Like to use, as per my philosophical practice that I'm still working on, just to go in and when I'm on the internet, do something like this, which in my biased opinion, I think is good and virtuous. But then to spend time with family and real life people as well offline. I think we can. Well, if all works out, we can make a better social media to start and a better internet, which I can tell you about at some point. Obviously, it's an uphill battle because there's people who pull the strings that might not want it quite that way. But I think it's good to at least spread these ideas about what's wrong and what could be done to improve it, at least theoretically. Okay.
I wish you the best in that effort. I question whether you're going to find out that you've wasted a lot of energy on that in the future because it's like a drop of water trying to fight the motion of the ocean.
Yeah. Well, like I say in my philosophy,
it's
the path of least.
It's very idealistic, but boy, talk about an uphill battle.
Well, hey, man, speaking to someone who's doing one, doing that.
Fair enough.
Magnificently.
Fair enough.
I think it's good. I don't presume it's an eternal process of trying to do it. So I don't assume it's going to happen in my lifetime.
Then my hat goes off to you as a fellow idealist. I appreciate the challenge that you have, and I wish you the best of luck on it.
Yeah, well, if nothing else, it makes my life easier. The way I describe it is the path of least resistance, at least for me, is to attempt to change everything. Just because when you learn about what's actually going on, and if you care about truth and ethics and basic, caring for your fellow man and woman, then it's easier to at least try the impossible than to just live in a twisted and corrupt construct. So that's.
Oh, I would agree with that entirely because at least it's at least you putting in an effort versus not putting in an effort. And something that I've been saying for years is doing nothing accomplishes nothing 100% of the time.
Exactly. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm getting. Okay, let's before I'm sure you have to go do exciting things in Perth, and I'm glad it's going so well for you there, and they're giving you the attention and respect you deserve. Everyone else pay attention. This is how it should be done. Okay, I'm going to scan through some. Okay, guys, if you're on the chat, please repost any very relevant questions so I don't have to scan through the whole thing. We've had a lot of people excited about you here.
That's fantastic, and I actually I love questions because lots of times it's very challenging me to pull from my memory banks what I think is pertinent information. So it's very helpful if people have questions because I'm very happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Everybody, okay, okay, that's a confusing question. Armstrong basically went totally dark. Okay, that was a moon thing. All right, everybody, give me the relevant questions below. Now copy paste. Okay, there's a lot of up and back here. Okay, well, while I wait for them to repost their comments, so I want to make sure I'm getting all the tidbits on the, okay. Let's go back to Antarctica, please, sir. There was 366 days you were there. So can you tell me a bit more about the technology and how this version of this array differed from the other ones? I think you said HARP was the one of the initial versions of this, and it was like a 2D versus 3D system or something.
Absolutely, great recollection, and that is it in a nutshell. So prior to the ice cube neutrino detector, the HARP technology, which is an extension of Tesla technology, was something that would be an antenna array on the surface of the planet, which would give it the dimensions of length and width. It's two-dimensional. The ice cube neutrino detector now goes vertically down in the ice, so it has length, width, and depth. So it's just an exponential growth in capacity to be a phased array transmitter. It's, it's just mathematically there. It's just it's the next iteration in becoming more manifold.
Okay, great. And if you could tell us a bit more about what you consider to be the use cases of this thing so far. I believe you mentioned an earthquake. Where was it? Like New Zealand or something you thought maybe was
Yes.
associated, for example?
Yep, Christchurch, New Zealand, in February of 2011, when when I was at the South Pole Station proper, the ice cube neutrino detector and what is known as the Amundsen Scott South Pole Elevated Station were both transitioning from their construction phases to operations and maintenance for the first time ever. It was, completion and coming to fruition. So the ice cube neutrino detector in February of 2011 came online and effectively caused the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand that decimated them. It was conveyed to me that this was a friendly fire incident. I do not have any reason to believe that the information that I was given wasn't true, but I am open to the idea that I may find out differently someday. That tidbit could be that people were being lied to. It is possible, but my current understanding was that as far as my crew understood, it was an accident.
Yeah, that'd be a strange thing to attack the good people of New Zealand. We love Lord of the Rings and Peter Jackson, after all. I mean, geez. Any other examples of this that you're aware of?
Define this on that question. I mean, there are
of potentially an accidental and or intentional bad use cases with this technology that happened.
No, not from my experience. At that point, they seem to have the weapon dialed incorrectly.
Okay, we got a couple of questions trickling in. Christchurch catastrophe, yeah, we got into that. More cowbell, don't know how that relates. Okay, something due to the three-dimensional array, are they working with ultra-low frequencies and can it make holographic scenes? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like a guy that was at the event last night.
He wasn't, but he's good into this.
The low frequency stuff was in the separate system, the ELF, which I determined to be active. So that's just the other system, not necessarily the ice cube detector array. And as far as holographic production, albeit I do believe that technology exists, I don't believe that it is these systems.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. You guys can hit a follow up if you think of something. Another question from the community, my dear compadres. Uh, what does Eric, know about the exotic power? I don't know what that is, but hopefully you will know what that is.
My understanding is that the exotic propulsion systems eject neutrinos in the process of them accomplishing their mission, which is why a system that is existing at the South Pole Station to observe neutrinos can be utilized like an air traffic control center to pay attention to what systems are moving about, the atmosphere, above it, below it, interior. Yeah.
Okay, another question, which I thought of. How are these arrays and such powered?
That is a great question. Um, from my understanding, the power required to run these systems exceeds the power supply presented to me as the production for the South Pole Station. And this is information that I spoke to with the Senate Intelligence Committee and ARROW when I visited Washington, D.C. I showed them maps. I explained to them where I do believe the actual power supply for these systems is located. And yeah, I think we're being lied to in that capacity as well. I do believe that there's a possibility that submarines might be being utilized in Antarctica as that power supply as well. So there's all kinds of possibilities on the table here, and I think it's very much worthy discussion to figure out where their power is coming from for these devices, because I do not believe it was as it was presented to me. There's something else going on.
Oh, wow. Good question. Okay, also a question about please tell us about hydrokinesis, if that makes
I'm not
sense.
familiar with the term.
Hydrokinesis, I'm not sure what that means. Okay. Well, if you want to, Andrew, if you want to elaborate on your question, we will follow up on it. And let's see, anything else? Okay, stop the chat. Let's just get some coherent questions, friends. Thank you very much. We got that one. Okay, you might have already covered this, but our friend Danielle wants to know, what are they doing with the HARP tech? I think you've already described it. Maybe you can elaborate on
Yeah,
it.
I think I think the same thing that I'm expressing with the ice cube neutrino detector. It's just that the neutrino detector is much better at doing the things that HARP had been doing up until this time. So, when you talk about weather modification, earthquake creation, um, um communications. All of these things can be done by these directed energy weapons platforms. It's just some are better at it than others, and the HARP arrays being 2D are just less functional than this new arrangement, which adds the third dimension to it.
Okay, here's a slightly more terrestrial oriented question that keeps coming up in the community. Do you support the candidate Stephen D. Kelly, if you're comfortable sharing, who wants to storm the Getty? Are you familiar with this?
Oh, that guy's a super fed bullshit artist. Fuck that guy. I met him in Las Vegas. That guy is someone everybody should be careful of. He's a fucking fed.
So I'll take that as a no. Okay, great. Let's
Yep.
see if
Fuck
let's.
Steve Kelly.
Okay, we got a clear answer
Yeah.
on that one as always. I always know where you stand on things, buddy, which I like.
Yep. Yeah. I don't pull punches, Ross. And this is what I'm learning going to these events as a human being, engaging with human beings, and getting my ass off of the internet. Once you are in proximity to these people in real life, it's very easy to hide the nuances of being a human being and whether you're genuine or disingenuous. That guy is a total con job, and all you got to do is spend 5 minutes in his presence.
Yeah, no,
There's a
it is.
lot more. There's a lot more to human conversation than words coming out of our mouths. And when you are in someone's zone, when you are in proximity, there's energies involved, there's facial expressions, there's body motions. These are skills that people are losing their ability to engage and discern. I don't suffer lacking those skills. And when I was in proximity to that guy, boy, was he screaming, I'm a con job.
Yeah, you can really tell with a lot of these people. It's a lot of work for people to just put on an act all the time. And yeah, when you're
Correct.
in real life, there's a lot of tells.
Exactly.
Okay. And yeah, no, I mean, meeting you, I mean,
Yeah.
you're just, I don't know. I don't, it's amazing how people function all the time, putting on a facade. It must be so exhausting. But yeah, you
Yeah, and
definitely,
if you press him on it, they usually can't hold it up for long.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he
Um,
can only say storm the Getty so many times before you realize he doesn't really give a damn about storming the Getty.
Do you think that there are people involved in that movement that have some authenticity, or is that just like maybe a sheep in wolf's clothes allegedly who is
Oh,
kind
for
of
sure.
trying to?
I absolutely believe that there's the possibility of good people infiltrating any bad organization, but I'm also becoming all too familiar with bad people infiltrating what is presumably a good organization, and he absolutely seems to be one of those people. I can't begin to tell you how much I watched him try to control every conversation around him and redirect everybody's energy. What I've been proselytizing to people since I've gotten into this community is that anytime you find good people pretty much accomplishing and gaining ground for the benefit of the people, you will find that these factions will send over immediately three groups of people: moles, provocateurs, and dissipators. To get in and try to dig information out that you haven't made public, provocateurs to try to antagonize you to make you do something that you shouldn't do so then you can be held accountable for it, and dissipators are the worst of the bunch because they smile, try to act like they're your friend, and what they're really doing is trying to redirect your energy and waste it. Stephen Kelly is a dissipator extreme. He's very good at what he does.
Okay, perhaps you can keep educating me. I mean, I'm relatively new to ufology. I mean, I've been involved in the topic
Mm-hmm.
my whole life as a filmmaker and screenwriter. I
Mm-hmm.
made my first feature. It was one of the things I was doing at Contact. They showed my movie Ascension, which is kind of a it was a pretty dark portrayal. You know, I was tasked with the opportunity to make a horror film. So it's a sci-fi horror film,
Mm-hmm.
but I researched it very thoroughly, and you know, various people seem to think it's accurate, but it wasn't the kind of branding of Contact in the Desert traditionally, although they did pick it based on what it was. So in all
Mm-hmm.
fairness, they're like, okay, cool, let's. But some of the people who saw it, especially because I did my lecture first on my philosophy, which has a light and love vibe, but for the purpose of war and war, it's proactive as you intuited it. But then the day after, they saw this like really dark, intense, but accurate, I think, horror film about the phenomenon. There were some people who were like astonished that they would have something like this at an event like that. So, I got a sense of the kind of how people group together and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
with that said, are there any people? Because me being relatively new, but I'm going hard, as you can tell. I'm really investigating
Mm-hmm.
the nature of reality to the best of my ability, to the point of death, and there beyond should the opportunity present itself as for the epistemology. But I do acknowledge that it's we're still early days of the eternal process of doing this, and I have much to learn. So this is part of the reason I love being able to do this with other people and to learn from them. So who in your view, in the world of disclosure and or ufology, do you in particular feel to be inauthentic, like this example you just described?
Did you say inauthentic, as in disingenuous?
Yeah, who do you think's full of shit, basically? Yeah.
Almost everybody that I've come across. I find it to be the rarity that we have people that are actually trying to accomplish the mission as presented. Saeed David Farman, the producer of 5D events in Las Vegas, which hosted Stephen Kelly, which enabled him to be the dissipator that he was. Co-producer of the 5D events, who was at Contact in the Desert, a gentleman by the name of Eric, quote, the Healer Datamer. These guys are total con jobs. So I spoke at this 5D event. I engaged with these people and gave them the opportunity to deliver on who they said they were. What wound up happening was, after I gave my information at the 5D event, I was contacted by Saeed David Farman and Eric the Healer Datamer. And I was told that I had to figure out how to take my information and make it support the flat earth model. I told them to go fuck themselves, and they told me that you're no longer going to be on any of our events. So this is what's really going on behind the scenes, is that people are absolutely trying to manipulate and control what's going on, and I would have nothing to do with it. So those, I mean, right there are three scumbags that I, learned from my own direct first-hand experience, are trying to manipulate and control the narrative so that people are ill-informed.
What's your take on what's going on with people like Rush and other, alleged whistleblowers?
Oh, folks like Grush are dogs on a short leash. Grush and his crew rolled out basically as counterintelligence to what was going on with Greer and his crew.
Hmm. Do you?
He has no direct first-hand experience for anything. Why was once again someone who has no actionable intelligence, no corroborating evidence, no direct first-hand experience is now given the floor in front of everybody?
Yeah, well, you don't want someone with evidence because that would complicate things. But do you think that people like Rush are sincere, though on a short leash? Like, do you think people like Rush think they're providing truth to the world? Yeah, take your time there, buddy.
Give me 1 second here. I apologize for this, but I actually have to just address what's going on right now.
Yeah,
I'm
no
so
problem.
sorry.
Yeah, do you want to like hit mute, or how do you want to? I can like click you maybe.
I have to do a quick text, I guess.
Oh, no
So
problem.
it doesn't
I'm
have
gonna.
to be
Yeah, take your
silenced.
time. I'm gonna scan through the many
You got
comments to
it.
find some juicy tidbits. You take your time, man.
Mhm.
I'll just mumble to the people who are
Yeah, I
listening.
apologize.
No need.
Okay. Just let someone know that I'm still being interviewed, but it was a person that I need to communicate that to.
Okay, cool.
Where were we?
Well, you were giving me some heads up on people. We were talking about Grush, and I was wondering, you said you think he's on a short leash, which makes sense.
Mhm.
Do you think there's a chance that he believes what he is doing is the right thing, and that he is earnestly providing as much information that he has access to?
I do not. I think he is just another typical agent that's doing what he's told.
Gotcha. Okay, let's get to some of our friends' questions. Here's a slightly more potentially fun one. What is your opinion on Sasquatch being another aspect of the phenomenon?
I find that highly intriguing. I'm not very informed in what's going on in the Sasquatch community. It's relatively new on my radar. Um, I would leave it on the table until I can prove otherwise. If there's something to be said for it, I guess I would challenge those that are bringing this to the table to converse about, to start providing their proof. And I hope it's not. I hope it's not a pile of speculation.
Fair enough. Yeah, I haven't really gone down this rabbit hole yet. I will in time.
Mhm.
Okay, my friend, Real Alien Hunter, has a question. Have you seen a graviton generator?
I'm not familiar with what a graviton generator is.
Okay, Real Alien Hunter, if you're around, you can provide some more context on that one because I don't know what that is either yet, and I'd like to know. Okay, I was going to get very technical. Okay, here's some loose thoughts from my friend. Phase differences in ultra low frequencies from a three-dimensional array, for instance, are these propagation waves? Are they able to travel faster than light? I think you already kind of described that maybe. Is that because of no right angled energy fields propagating outward? Are the questions, if that makes sense?
Um, I feel like well, there was three parts there.
Yeah,
The
the first
second
one,
one.
yeah, let me
Mhm.
just break it down for you. Yeah, that's
Go
a lot.
ahead.
Okay, so there's the frequencies of the three-dimensional array, for instance. First question, are these propagation waves?
I don't think so, and this is I guess I would want to have more of a direct engagement with this type of person, which is why the internet's terrible. But I believe we're probably teetering on the line where even Tesla himself will get frustrated because it's the idea of understanding the difference between Hertzian wavelengths and other wavelengths. So in a way, I want to believe that propagation wavelength might be similar to what Tesla was calling scalar or longitudinal. But then I also am giving pause because if I'm wrong, this could be the issue of where Tesla was getting frustrated because propagation could also mean like radiated, and Tesla didn't like that because it insinuated propagated loss. And lots of times when it came to longitudinal and scalar waves, what Tesla was providing was that there was an increase of energy at the receiving end versus the input end. So it would be the opposite of propagated or radiated transmission of energy. That would be my answer to the first part. And the second part was
I'll read it to you. Are they able to travel faster than light?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The speed of light as a boundary is something that's not true. There's we're learning that there's a lot of things that can go faster than the speed of light, and communications is one of them.
And
Pendulums are something that we can observe as a very peculiar thing mathematically, which show an anomaly, right? So when you have a pendulum that's swinging and it goes from one position to the next, right? That dimension from point to point can be measured. The momentum can be measured. And what we learn is that the pendulum swings in one direction and then with full momentum in no time goes from going in one direction to the other.
Oh, really?
It's mathematically calculable. So that's in a way an observation of something happening in no time and space that defies the limits of what we're told is going on.
And the last bit of his statement is that because of no right-angled energy fields propagating outward?
I don't know that that's a true statement.
Moving on. Okay, thank you for that. Pattern through experiences, love and trauma. Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about Stephen Kelly, the Getty, whatever's going on there. Okay, a lot of comments. We'll work on the process of getting some nice, clean. It's good. The engagement's great, though. It's good that we have
Fantastic.
so many things.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's folks out there listening to this and giving my information the time of day. With that being said, in the grand scheme of stuff, I really hope that people share this information because that's what's really needed nowadays. Is that in order for we the people to become victorious in all of these battles and the war on the mind, we have to start getting really proactive. If you're gonna listen to this today and do absolutely nothing with it, then I've wasted my time.
Well, this is my full-time thing, trying to get to the truth and learn from people.
Well, and again, I don't mean you, Ross. I mean the collective you as the audience. If you, the audience, are going to listen to this information today and do nothing with it, you, the audience, have wasted my time.
Yeah, you guys have wasted my time too, because they know that I do not allow them to do nothing. It's a proactive thing here. We have a Discord.
Right.
We got 37 projects, research and such related to things of this nature. We were researching you leading up to this collaboratively. I mean, not in a weird way, just watching your podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm putting my best foot forwards. I am investing my time, my efforts, my monies out of my own pocket. To try to do the best that I can for humanity, and the only thing that I expect from everyone else out there is to do the same damn thing. So I'm leading by example, and I challenge everyone to live up to my expectations. Do the same thing. I'm doing it. I expect reciprocity.
So in terms of your day job, now that you're on this mission, very compatible with my personal quest, Um, how does that affect your plumbing skill opportunities? You're this high level contractor, doing these very challenging projects. Are those opportunities still available to you? And what's your work life now that you are a whistleblower?
It's very challenging to stay properly employed. The powers that be would prefer me to be starving and in survival mode, and I've certainly rode the roller coaster of that. I am currently in a position where I am properly employed, so I'm duly empowered to take my non-work hours and donate them along with the money that I do earn for the benefit of humanity. The next time I'm underemployed, you won't see me anymore because I won't be able to do this. So if people don't support me in my efforts to either stay properly employed or fund me when I'm not, yeah, I mean, this is how the powers that be play these games.
For your day job, do you find in the private sector there's more opportunities? I mean, I can imagine it being difficult to work at the South Pole at this point, for example. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to ask you too personal, direct questions about your job, but I wish you well, and I want you to
Mhm.
be employed, but and so employed that you also have time to
Mhm.
save the world.
Currently in the environment that I'm in, the vast majority of people that I work with know what I'm up to and support what I'm doing. Um, with some regularity, I have strangers approach me that recognize me and basically just give me a pat on the back and say, I appreciate what you're doing. So currently, I'm in a good place with employment. I'm able to move forwards and try to make things happen. And I will continue to do that as long as I'm properly employed or on the graces of folks that might want to assist me in that direction. I can only accomplish things when I'm properly resourced. I mean, that's how life goes. If I couldn't afford the plane tickets to Australia, I wouldn't be here right now speaking to the fine people in Australia because it's not like these producers of these shows are actually doing what people think they are. Um, when an event has 70 speakers, you really think that the producer of that show is sending out 70 sets of tickets and paying for 70 hotel rooms? It doesn't work like that. They want everyone to think that's what's going on, but it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, we do live in this construct of, we're not in charge as regular people, sadly, and the more you look
Mhm.
into things, you see the extent to how that
Mhm.
is the case. So let me see if there's any more relevant questions that have just been added. Um, so what,
Yeah, as a perfect example, I met you at the Contact in the Desert event. I had to pay for the airfare, I had to pay for the hotel, I had to pay for the event, um, of which I don't think I really watched. I think I watched one speaker at the event, but for the most part, I was there to have one-on-one conversations with fine folks like yourself to have more of a grassroots movement in the disclosure industry. But this comes at great expense to myself both in time and money.
yeah, and this is a challenge, right? You brought up there's a lot of grifty people, right? And I
Mhm.
think you and I and most people can discern who's legit and who isn't. But you know, making money while trying to find and share this truth can trigger people into at least looking into people to see if they are doing things for the right incentives, right? But at the same
Yep.
time, one needs to sustain themselves, and I do think it's important to have honest people, like yourself, who
Mhm.
have as much time and resources as necessary to get the job done. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
massive, as we described, we're very ambitious with our
Mhm.
optimistic goals, right? And,
Uh-huh.
I hope like through, hopefully this podcast, for example, will succeed in a way where I can,
Mhm.
be able to do exactly what I want and talk to exactly who I
Mhm.
want without any compromise and to have it be
Mhm.
at least self-sustainable so that I can, keep
Yeah.
doing this.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate that entirely. I'm actually transitioning my website as we speak. Up until this point, I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of my own dollars attempting to get this information out to the public. The way that this stuff works is in order for me to not be out of the fight, I can't run out of resources or I lose. I'm literally out of the fight. So I'm currently transitioning my website, which had been completely free for everybody to access. It's still currently free, folks, so get in there while you can. But I will be transitioning it to a method of there being folks to get involved with supporting me financially for the information because the expense of me going out and about the world and trying to get this information, like I just said before, if I get underemployed again, I can't afford these things. So I'm pre-planning for the fights that are coming and setting up my website to, like you had stated, at the very least be self-supporting. I'm certainly not going to profit from charging people a $5 subscription fee. It's just alleviating the cost of things.
Yeah. And I think people who are, not everyone is an honest person who makes criticisms against other people, but I think those that are
Mhm.
would hopefully acknowledge that people should be able to find some kind of ethical way to self-sustain their efforts to research these things and to share
Right.
information. And
Yeah.
but you know,
The day
and
that
then
I'm
you
dri- the
yeah,
day that I'm driving around in a Ferrari, the critics will be correct.
yeah.
But I have a Ford work van and obvious expenses to the travels that I do to try to get this information out. So there is no argument that could be had that I'm some sort of profiteer.
Right, right. And I think, we can think of examples of people who take it unethically, like, for example,
Billy
selling snakes.
Carson. Billy Carson.
There you go. But, perhaps, selling elixirs and things like that as a tip off to people trying to, dictate whether or not someone is a grifter or simply trying
Mhm,
to stay alive in a very economically challenging time to be a person,
mhm.
even if you're
Yeah, understood.
playing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm all for folks sustaining themselves so that they can stay the fight. But as it's like everything else, the proof is in the pudding. It's one thing to charge people money for something; it's another thing. What do you do with it?
Yeah,
You
gotta
know, and
be.
and and all kidding aside, I mean seriously, look at Billy Carson. I mean, the guy is literally promoting himself, trying to sell people stuff, and then in the same breath, trying to portray this lifestyle of of opulence and wealth. I mean, so what's he doing with the money he charges people? He's taking limousine rides. He's buying a new suit and check out my new watch. I mean, what's the difference between him and some charlatan at a church saying God needs your money so that I can have shiny shoes?
Yeah, yeah, and it's such a serious topic to use for personal gain. So I think that makes perfect sense. Okay, if you got a bit of some, here's a question pertaining to your psi background and abilities. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with dream machines, and can you deconstruct the imagery of the dream world to astral project? If that makes sense.
I'm not familiar with dream machines. And read the other part to me again, please.
Yeah, yeah. This is maybe a different set of terminology this guy has, but yeah, dream machines.
Mhm.
And then, can you deconstruct the imagery of the dream world to astral project?
I cannot.
Fair enough. Let's see if we have anything else here that seems like a question before we move on. Yeah. Okay. I already asked that one. I just want to get to everyone's questions. I appreciate everyone sharing them. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay. You might have already kind of covered this, but let's go into it again. What about visitors? Does Earth actually get tourism?
From off world, you mean?
I believe that's the implication. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I think it's very minuscule and that topic should be put to the back burner while we address what is the majority concern, which is that there's a much more likelihood that these activities are man-made.
Okay, while we're into the ET stuff, are the non-humans all humanoid?
I have no idea.
They seem to be based on people's stories. They
Well, and then
bipedal.
that brings me back to my supposition that what people are presuming is off-world is not off-world. That is, it's really just us.
Yeah,
That set of statistics is supporting what I'm letting people in on.
yeah.
Reconsider those as non-off-world and local activities.
That does seem to make the most sense. Okay, what? This is for my friend Andrea here, a lovely lady. What is the technology gap? 500 years, 1,000? How far? How much has been suppressed
Way,
of the
way
technology?
higher, way higher.
Oh, give me a number.
Let's call it 10,000 years.
Oh, that's a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost beyond our comprehension. Excuse me. I believe it was in the early 1980s that they stated that, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but just to go at this question for a sense of understanding, I believe it was in the early 1980s that somebody was stating that for every year the civilian world technology advances, that the military advances by 50.
Okay. And so it is your understanding then that quote unquote free energy has existed for some time? Is free energy something that is on this planet being used, but not by the regular people?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's many ways to skin a cat, and Nikola Tesla said back in the day, listening to humanity complain about not having enough energy is like listening to a man drifting down a river in a canoe saying he's thirsty.
And do you think there is a version of this that in a different society, a different civilization could be rolled out that would be safely used by people that wouldn't necessarily be more of a risk than a benefit to humanity?
I think humanity already has so many different ways of accomplishing this right now that they're not rolling out to the vast majority of people. We've already accomplished this. It's just being
So,
withheld.
so there's safe versions of this that could be used right now.
Tons.
Yeah.
There are safe versions being used, but monopolized by a small few.
Okay, here's another one. Thanks for your time, by the way. I know
You
you have
got
other
it.
things
You
to do.
got
So
it. No,
it's good to
it's
have
all
you
good.
here.
It's all good.
Okay, cool. Because this is a lot of fun for me. Okay, here's another one from God Sauce. Why does the Earth look smaller from the moon than vice versa? Not sure what that means. Even taking atmospheric magnifying into account. Does that make sense to you?
Sounds to me like someone's speaking about an experience they never had and is
Right.
supposing stuff that sounds like somebody's trying to go in the flat Earth angle on me.
I don't think this is a flat earther, but this is someone who has experienced many things that I have
Not looking
not.
at the Earth from the moon.
Yeah, well, maybe not literally, but we'll see. Moving on. Okay. Well, here's another one. We're getting a little speculative here as well. Is Earth actually even a planet?
It sounds like a very silly question to me.
It does, it doesn't it? Yeah. What about the moon? That the whole hollow Earth moon thing. Do you think it's a moon or something
I think one of
constructed?
the greatest books that I ever read was called Who Built the Moon? And there's a lot of questions about what the moon is. I would recommend people read that book and let me know what they think about it. There's certainly a
Excellent.
lot of anomalous stuff when it comes to the moon.
Okay, I think we might have gotten all the coherent questions. Mostly just people bickering about different points of view, which is what comment sections are for. Okay, so in terms of like the new physics, right? We've had like Terrence Howard sharing his views. There's
Mhm.
geometric unity, which is the Weinstein's, I think, the name of his theory of everything. So, we're like however many 10,000 or so years behind in terms of the actual technology. What's your understanding or guesstimation of what the true science is, the true physics? What is behind this technology? Is it something that requires a new field of scientific study, or is it something that can be contained within the basic forms of physics that we are aware of?
Easy answer on this one, which is going to be challenging for people to consider, is that the new technology is called consciousness. That everything has to do with consciousness and creation. That we have to realize that there is a connecting point, and it's challenging to put into detail for folks, because it's something that I understand and I've experienced, but people need to start realizing that there's value to consciousness as much as science wants to ignore it and religion wants to control it. The it part is still known as consciousness. It has a massive value to our experience and our environment.
What are some things that we could do without the need for technology with our consciousness if we were fully capable and aware?
Remote view and traverse space and time to know anything you want to know.
And do you is it your experience that you've downloaded things from beyond the Akashic records or the ether, whatever, however you might describe it?
Absolutely.
What are some examples of things you obtain that way cognitively?
Greater understanding of energy and how it works in the cosmos.
And what was the experience like of receiving all that information?
It caused me to draw a whole bunch of pictures and self-educate myself.
Yeah, I met many people with those experiences, and they've gone through the same thing, and it's like they weren't even interested in the topic. They didn't study science. All of a sudden they think, or sometimes they actually are reinventing this lost technology. It's baffling. So where do you think it comes from, and why does it come to certain people, do you think?
I think it's omnipresent. And like many other things that we observe in nature, and you stated something before, path of least resistance. I was not resistant to the reception of this energetic information stream, so I received it.
So it's just out there. So it's not like some people perceive benevolent or maybe not benevolent beings like imparting it, sharing it with you. It's more just like everyone could potentially access all this.
It's been proven through the Stargate program and the remote viewing teams that everybody has these abilities. Some are more proficient than others, some are prodigies, but similarly to like playing a guitar, right? There's no one stopping you from playing the guitar. It's just a skill set that you can practice and become better at through practice. You may be a prodigy at it. You may be not so good at it, but effectively, nobody can stop Ross Waxman from playing the guitar. Same thing with the remote
That is
viewing.
very true. Very true. I was just playing the guitar before this, actually. So yeah, you're
There
right.
you go. Yeah, I mean, so that's
and I channel through my music. So you're
there you
very
go.
right. Yeah.
So this is a skill set that's available to anyone who wants to use it, similar to playing a guitar.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I found I don't think we did this question yet. This one actually kind of makes sense. Okay, here we go. From my friend Lynx, a smart dude. How do they solve, I guess this has to do with the arrays, right? The time sync issue with the FTL communication.
I don't know that there is a time sync issue. It's just,
faster than light, right? So yeah, it could just be
right.
instantaneous.
Yeah, I mean, which makes it faster than time. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, what time sync issue is this in reference to? Would be my question.
Yeah, maybe they weren't aware of the faster than light aspect of this. Okay, here's a general physicsy kind of thing. Do you know how to bridge the gap of small and large science?
Yeah, it's called quantum mechanics.
There you go. Yeah. It appears, yeah, it's the same for big objects and little ones potentially, right?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what my intelligent friends are telling me anyway. The guy I suggested, maybe, yeah, I'm glad it's just you and I, but the
Hmm.
scientist I recommended maybe for a future chat. Don't worry, he's a
Hmm.
super cool guy.
Fair enough.
That does agree with that assessment, so he'll
Hmm.
maybe educate me subsequently. He's going to be on the podcast too. You'll like him. Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, it's up to you, of course, but
Fair enough.
of course, you make your own opinions. Don't you worry. DIY yourself. Okay. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to give you a chance to vibe. I mean, I'm here to talk as long as you feel like it. But
Hmm.
what else would you like us to know?
Hmm. That like William Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage. People really need to start paying attention to the quantity of actors and the sets being fabricated. It's really the world is ripe right now for massive amounts of manipulation, and people really need to start working a lot harder to get through bullshit and realize how muddied the waters are and by whom. It's getting really bad. I mean, you asked me before, like, where are the good guys in this equation? I'm not finding them. It's very frustrating to keep wanting to do the right thing, and more or less, like, like you saw, I went to contact in the desert. Um, if I want to reduce down into a nutshell what my efforts are for in going to those types of events, is I'm trying to find friends in a sea of foes. But the reality is, it's few and far between. The vast majority of people, in my direct firsthand experience in this effort, is I'm finding many people, if not most, are enemies of the truth, presenting as supporters of it. And I need help from the people out there that are willing and bold enough to, you know, raise a red flag when they see someone that they perceive as full of shit. Because I can't do it all on my own.
Well, don't yeah. Online people love to call people out. They're not always
Mhm.
accurate, but yeah, there is
Understood?
that. Yeah, no, it's good. It's important to especially when there's facts that can be proven
Hmm.
to be true or false. It is
Yeah, this is a fight for the truth. So that it insinuates a level of aggression. We need to aggressively go after the liars and figuratively punch them in the nose.
yeah. So what would be some other steps in addition to having discussions? By the way, for those listening and watching, it's deciphering.tv, as it says next to Eric's name. It's a really kick-ass website, and it's free of charge currently, although you should tip
Mhm.
this gentleman so he can keep doing his work if you feel so inclined. And it has a bunch of documents that I was going through to the best of my ability to understand. I was actually in my some live stream stuff where we went through it together to show the visual and to inspire people to look into it. And yeah, I mean, one thing I love about doing these podcasts, it gives me deadlines to research specific things. Trying to get the whole nature of reality is pretty silly. So to have like milestones. So I appreciate
Focus
how
points.
yeah, your website is really excellent, and you have documents and you have personal experience, and so it was yeah, the community was really engaged by what you had to share. So I invite people to look at it and ask questions about it. If there's something that seems one way or another, we'll just openly get to the truth. And my way of doing it is kind of non-dramatic if possible, but it's very proactive, as they as my community knows.
Mhm.
We do not put up with lies and bullshit, and but we keep an open mind. So what other things can people potentially do from like an activist perspective, from a truth seeking and sharing perspective? And also, like, what are the main threats that you see, in addition to just the general issue of this whole disinfo world going on right now, and how easy it is to manipulate the masses? what can we do, and what are the most tangible short-term risks we should be mindful of?
Ooh, this is an interesting question because it's my answer is simple, but the effort for people to do with this answer is monumental on their part, but obligatory regardless. And the answer to that question is know thyself, which is a battle cry um, from the ancient wisdom schools of old, because the modern technology is a bastardization of ancient techniques, and the threat is still the same. The battlefield is still the mind. And if you cannot, in this world of misinformation, disinformation, and the access that technology has to, again, the collective you out there in the audience, um, you're not aware currently that this technology is accessing and influencing your mind directly, under the false pretense that we need things like Neuralink to connect you. That's not true. These cell phones, they're already monitoring how you respond to every bell and whistle that comes on. It's monitoring your respiration rate. It's monitoring your circulatory system and engaging a response. It does know what you're thinking, and it does apply information accordingly. And if you do not know thyself better than something else knows and manipulates you, you're a slave to the technology and the applied intentions of others. So without knowing thyself, you're kind of screwed.
What are some ways people can know themselves better?
Massive introspection, and therein lies the effort that I challenge people to do that is probably insurmountable to most.
Do
Separate
you
yourself from separate yourself from the technology until such time you do know thyself. Good luck with that one, folks.
Yeah, no. Like when I started my kind of introspective process, it started my philosophy was a lot of shadow work. I don't know if you're into
Mhm.
the Jungian kind of method of these things, but I created, just a brief comment on this algorithmic jujitsu initially just to see if there's a way that I could go online without compromise, and still sleep at night, right, and still
Mhm.
live with myself. And so I had to create a
Mhm.
whole philosophy just for myself, just to see if that might be possible. I'm still trying to see if it
Mhm.
is. But before that, like you were saying, I was in isolation because of the
Mhm.
pandemic,
Mhm.
but that was also not online, and it was a
Mhm.
good thing that I wasn't, and that I had a lot of time to a little bit too much time,
Mhm.
in my own head. But I'm grateful that I did not just jump online and get lost in that way
Mhm.
willy nilly. And I do agree that that is the most important thing, is to go into nature, to detach from
Mhm.
technology and all the propaganda. Yeah.
Here's one of the easiest things a person can do for massive benefit. Okay, um, when you go to bed at night to rest, turn the Wi-Fi off in the house. Keep your phone as far away from where you rest as possible. Incorporate that as a regimen into your life, and you will reap great benefits from just a simple thing like that. Because why the hell do you need your phone and the Wi-Fi on when you're sleeping? Can you not at least respect yourself enough to just simply disconnect and rest? There's no
Yeah.
reason. There's no reason for your Wi-Fi to be on and your phone to be next to you when you're sleeping.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to do. Actually, my friend taught me this. Yeah, to
Mhm.
it's also good for your Wi-Fi security of your system, and you can
Mhm.
simply set it to turn off at certain hours and turn back on. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great
And it's a
idea.
good way to fight the powers that are working against us because they wholly expect and are loving the fact that we have this stuff on all the time. So screw them, turn it off and distance yourself from it. And that is each person taking an individual active role for the benefit of everybody else.
Okay, another question came in that might be relevant for you. Hutchinson effect. Are you aware of the inverted torus field? Is this what we're calling the phenomenon combining with consciousness?
I'm not familiar with the inverted toroid field as mentioned, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in my massive amount of peculiar experiences, I've spoken with John Hutchinson a few times on the phone.
Really?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Well, how did that go?
He's an interesting character. I do believe that he has accomplished some very interesting things with working with energy. Um, but I didn't speak to him in regards to the toroid topic. It was more along the lines of Tesla technology, Tesla coils, and things of the such at the time where my brain was at, and I happened to get a hold of him.
Well, very cool. I want to kind of try to bring it to a gentle but beautiful conclusion with
Mhm,
the know thyself advice, because I
mhm,
resonate with that deeply. I'm as I try to understand the world around me, I'm continuously, trying to understand the universe within, and I think that that's a
mhm,
beautiful statement and universal, and I think it will bring us to the potential that we have to understand consciousness and to experience the full potential, the full expanse of what we can do with it, not just individually, but collectively.
mhm.
And we should, when we go online, I would say try to do it, in the kind of way we're doing right now, where we're just being open and telling the truth and sharing it to the best of our ability, and then share your truth, with real life people even more frequently. Um, any final statements? I would love to have you on again and again. I have a lot more questions, but
This was a great conversation, Ross. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the audience gets the gist of the direction that I'm coming from. I'm just a very uncompromising person on a mission. And I would appreciate any support that people can throw in my direction, whether it's through sharing this information, discussing it with people, or like you said earlier, like, tipping me out on the website. All these little things help, and whatever anybody can do to help me to promote this information in the future, I would just say thank you.
okay, cool. Well, it's deciphering.tv. I'm grateful to have met you and to continue getting to know you. You've been, an exemplary first DIY disclosure podcast guest, and I'm really grateful that you made the time while traveling across the world to do this. Let's please stay in touch, and maybe we can collaborate on the finding and sharing of truth until the point of death
Absolutely.
and there beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it, Ross. I really appreciate your time and efforts as well, and I wish you the best of luck in all of your endeavors.
Okay, cool. I look forward to hearing more about your ongoing adventures, and thanks again.
You got it.
Okay, thank you, chat and people, for checking out the first episode. Wow, what a great thing to do with your time. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.